Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to be showing a game I played in a chess league that I am part of. I think this was the penultimate round of the league, and to be honest we didn't need to do a lot to win it. There was one team that could catch us that we were not playing, and if we won or drew the match we would be champions. There'd be no way for that team to catch up. And even if we lost our game, the team that could catch us had to win, I think 3-1 or better to actually have a chance to beat it, to win their last round match against us and then overtake us to become champions. So we were essentially champions already, but this last game was still relatively important. So here we go then. I was white on board 1, playing against a very strong player. I think I've drawn with him in the past, and he's about 200 ECF or 2200 FIDE, but has been higher than that, about just under 2300. So he is a candidate master. And I prepared against him, but then something strange happened. In this game it's 60 minutes plus 15-second increment, so it could be up to 2.5 hours. So I'd gone through my prep, I'd gone to the Sicilian, I think Taimanol variation, I might be wrong though. And Queen c7 can lead to a Khan Sicilian after a6, or something similar. It's Bishop e3, and he almost always plays Bishop e7. Or sometimes even, a6, a6 then Bishop e7. But here he played Bishop, Knight f6, castles, and Bishop b4. Which is quite a sharp line, and he's never played this before. So my guess is he either spent ages sort of trying to counter prep and go into a different line, or he's trying something out since the pandemic. But I was not prepared for this, and he must know his theory extremely well because he played essentially perfect moves up until about move 20. So I was out prepped. I played knight c6, and he takes, and I vaguely remembered seeing the move queen d4 played a couple of times in games. I think maybe Wesley So has played this. c5, and then queen c4. And the position's already about equal, to be honest. I wasn't really expecting a big advantage in this line, just something that would give me a comfortable sort of setup. Castles. And then knight a4 is an interesting move. The idea is to try and win the c5 pawn. And I was very surprised by his next move, a5, which I did not really understand at the time, but because it seems to not actually guard the pawn. But what it does, though, even though it entombs his own bishop, he has the move bishop a6 next turn, which will skewer my queen to my bishop on e2. I saw this, and then therefore I had to take on c5 with the knight, preventing bishop a6. Then he played d5, and I thought taking was best, giving him an isolated pawn. And my queen is being attacked. If I move it too far, my knight will be taken, so I played queen d4. And here I had thought I was okay, because it doesn't look that bad of a position for white. I'm a pawn up, I've got an excellent knight on c5, I have a better pawn structure, c3 might win the bishop pair, and I was shocked at what happened next. He had rook e8, and I then realised that if he takes on c5 a bunch of times, my bishop on e2 is vulnerable. So I then thought, alright, well, maybe knight b3, get my knight out of danger, and then perhaps later I can play c3. I did think of bishop f3 though as a move. I was just still not. I wasn't quite sure. Bishop f3 could well be a better move or an alternative, but the problem with that move, bishop f3, was I was then concerned. And I might be wrong about this. I was concerned about rook takes, and the idea is that when I take back here, I've lost the defender to my knight. So black will win 2 pieces and have the bishop pair. That's why I went knight b3. Then bishop d6, going for the h-pawn. And I realised there was some very nasty stuff coming up, but I couldn't see any way to stop it all, so I played h3. I prioritised king safety above pawn structure, because after this move again I missed. I thought bishop e5 was coming with a skewer on my b2 pawn, but no, a4. I retreated the knight, not much else I can play. Bishop e5, skewering me, and then if I play queen b4, there is later on a move rook b8 or queen takes c2 as well. So I thought, alright, well, let's go kingside and attempt to hack with an attack. Bishop takes, and I can't defend c2 either. So centralise the rook, queen c2. So essentially here he's played extremely well. I'm now a pawn down when I was a pawn up about 5 or 6 moves ago, and his d pawn could suddenly turn into a strength if he pushes it far. My a pawn's also very vulnerable as well next few turns, and he has no weaknesses at all. He's played this. He's completely outplayed me here. I attempt to save my weak bishop on e2. I don't want it lined up with black's rook, and I go for the initiative. He's happy trading the bishops, and so am I, hoping that I can already get some sort of draw. I improve the knight, attacking the d pawn. Bishop f6, an excellent move, attacking my a pawn and my queen. Queen g4, going for a tempo on the knight, and he then plays knight to e5. Again, very logical moves. Again, if I can keep trading pieces, perhaps I can get the draw. I was hoping bishop takes, then I can take the d pawn, he'll take the a pawn, and that way, with enough pawns off the board, again, a draw is not that unlikely. But no, he takes with the rook, and I sensed he may go wrong here, because there's a lot of kind of phantoms, as some people call them. There's a lot of things, complicated tactics in these positions, where it's very easy to go wrong. I played bishop d4, and he then appears to be winning a bishop with rook to e4, doing a fork. But I have queen f5, now his rook is pinned to his queen. I'm threatening to take his bishop, doubling up his pawns and then taking, and I'm threatening d5. So I had thought that perhaps I'd outplayed him now. But he calmly plays bishop e7, which I had thought was okay for me after queen takes d5, but then rook d8, and now he's doing a skewer on my d4 bishop. His pieces are all protected, and I can't save everything. So the only move I could see was queen b7, counter-attacking his bishop on e7. He doesn't take me, he decides to play rook e2, and therefore my a pawn is extremely vulnerable to attack. And it turns out queen f3 is the only move for white that keeps any chance of a draw. I missed that, naturally, and I played queen a7. I was attempting to target his a pawn, keep defending my f2 pawn, and perhaps play stuff like bishop b6 in the future, or move my rook on d1, and my queen's defending my bishop, so my rook isn't tied down anymore. Bishop f8 was played, which again just saves the bishop. And here I played a3 with some tricks, which are probably not very good, but at least there's something. He doesn't fall for any of them though, and plays an excellent move, although queen c6 is only the second best move. So he actually had a completely winning move here. Can you find black's incredible tactic? So he had the move rook takes f2, which I thought after the game I didn't see this during the game at all. The idea is that if I don't take it, he's going to take on either f1 or g2, more likely, and go for mate. And if I take with my rook, he takes my d1 rook, and then picks up my bishop as well. Therefore I have to take with the bishop. But then rook takes is very, very strong. And if I take, I'm in terrible shape, because queen will take and then bishop d6 check after I play king h2. And if I try a move like queen a6, he can simply trade the rooks, force me back, and then pick up the pawn on a3, and it's about +5 or +7 or something, completely winning for black. But that's not an easy move to see, and even a computer takes about 30 seconds to find this tactic, or see how strong it is. So he instead played a very reasonable move, Queen c6, although taking the pawn at first looks a lot more tempting. To take the pawn, I thought I might be able to successfully do the trap with bishop a3, and then I have lots of discovered attacks and discovered things on his rook. For example, bishop e3 is quite a fun move, and if rook takes, there are lots of sort of funny positions where I can play stuff like queen b8 check, goes back. Oh no, maybe I've got the wrong position. I'm wrong here. I thought I was setting a trap here, but I'm missing a move somewhere. The game was played over a week ago, so I can't remember what it was I was playing. What was it? Oh yeah, that was it. Rook a1 first, of course. So yeah, I knew there was a reason bishop e3 was awful. Yeah, that was it. Then bishop back to, say, f8, let's say. Yeah, and then I can take on a4 with the queen. That was the tactic. If black defends with something like queen b3, which saves the bishop, I think then bishop e3 was my idea. Although bishop e3 is minus 0.7, so it's actually not that good. But this was my idea at the time, sort of thinking perhaps I could hold black sort of down where their bishop can't move. If their rook goes to a2, I can trade, then take on a4. And black is not as winning as they first appear. So yeah, I had a lapse of memory there. I knew bishop e3 was involved, I just forgot the move order. Yeah, so they played queen c6. Still very, very good for black. Queen b6, I think maybe if I can trade, I might get the draw. And then if they take my rook on d1, this is sort of what I want. And they won't be able to take on a3 because of reasons. And if they play rook a8, which he did, unfortunately, rook d3, rook a2, rook d1, and then here he played f6, breaking my rule. He has no respect for me at all. So when I said a moment ago that there were reasons that taking on a3 were wrong, can you see what the reasons are? So bishop takes a3 is a huge blunder. White to move and win. I have the tactic rook d8 check. I know how to trade the rooks. Then bishop f8 only move. Bishop c5. The bishop is pinned. It cannot be defended. And I should be able to pick up the a-pawn as well in the future and win the game with an extra bishop. Black has to play a move like h5 next turn anyway. So I had thought in the game that rook takes a3 would win, and it does. It wins very comfortably. Although f6 is apparently a better move, so he played better than me. I would have taken with the rook. Both of them, though, are very, very similar. It just feels easier to take with the rook. But he's preventing any chance for me to have tactics. And in games that he's played with people I know, he often does just prevent enemy tactics. He's very good at safety moves. I'm hoping for a draw. So oddly enough, by trading one set of rooks, if I can go into a rook and pawn ending, only a pawn down, maybe I can draw. King f7. I play g3, preventing any nasty threats from him. Now he takes the pawn, which I wasn't able to stop anyway. Rook a8, bishop e7. I try to go for a pin, and he gets out the way. I put my king on a light square, no chance of any checks coming on. a3. I'm trying to hold the promotion square under my control with the bishop. And then rook d2, and here I went a bit drastic because I just knew I was getting outplayed, and that with this a-pawn and a set of bishops on the board, I think it is now winning for black. But I don't want to make his life easy, so therefore I actually give the exchange to win the pawn with bishop c5 and then take. My aim is to construct a kind of fortress where black cannot break through. And even though I can't win, there's a very good chance of drawing the game. And so I just run around with the bishop, not doing anything really. There's no way I can improve my king or my pawns. And his own king starts running around. I was hoping for the draw here with f5, which is sort of a known drawing technique. You play bishop g5, and then just hold everything together with h4. Or even king f3 would be good here. Even king f3 to prevent king e2. And then h4. And black cannot move any of their pawns up the board, and all you do is just keep your bishop on this diagonal, going h6, g5, f4, etc. And black is really, really struggling to even attempt to win the game. So he played correctly, rook c6. And I run around a bit, because, again, there's nowhere really for my bishop to go. And he prevented my bishop moving to e7 or d8. I have to come back. King at d3, king f3, preventing king e2. Bishop back to b6. He finds the move, check, forcing my king back, therefore king e2. My bishop must stay on this diagonal, protecting the f2 pawn. And again, lots of shuffling around. And some more manoeuvring with the bishop and rook. And funnily enough, the computer says this is a blunder, g5. But to be honest, if black keeps on doing no pawn moves and running around with the rook, there's no way to win. Black has to do this, g5. And I was thinking maybe I could play g4, but the trouble with g4 is if I play it and then black does the correct move, oddly enough, which is taking, that way there's fewer pawns on dark squares, I'm going to have to force either my pawn to f3 where it will be weak, or put my king to g3. And then their king and their rook can attack from behind. And I unfortunately won't have enough protection to survive this. So for example, there's stuff like rook c3. And I just don't have enough. Because if my king moves to e4, they have king g2. And if I play king g3, king e2, I'm eventually going to have to move my king. And then finally, black can sacrifice their rook for the bishop, winning a pawn and the game. So, very unfortunately for me, I don't have g4. If there was one pawn fewer on the board, I could draw it. So I end up keeping my pawns where they are, bishop e3. Again, manoeuvring around. Black now plays f5. Some more shuffling. And the pawn trade is offered. I do take the trade. And I am totally lost, but still trying to get the draw. Again, if one more pawn... If the f-pawn's vanished, it would still be a draw, I think. Because my king is in the perfect corner of the board. And actually, even if both my pawns vanished and black's f-pawn was lost, it would still be a draw, I believe, because all I do is play king h1 and then put my bishop on h2 or g1, just keep shuffling the bishop. And all black can do is achieve stalemate. But he's not going to do that. He's going to keep his f-pawn. And again, I played one last trick, king h3. And he was down quite low on time now, but he still found the optimal strategies. If king takes f3, white has the fantastic move, bishop takes f4, which was my trap. If king takes bishop, it's a stalemate, and as I said, if black only has the h-pawn and rook against my king and bishop, it's still a draw. So I would play something like bishop g3, perhaps, or bishop h2, not quite sure which one's better. And then just sort of slide my bishop around. Black sort of shuffling around a bit. I mean, I'm sure there are better moves for black, but again, I'm just demonstrating the position. So here I can draw with something like bishop g1, and then king h1, and again my bishop just keeps going to h2 g1 over and over and over again. And if black ever sacrifices their rook for the bishop, it's a drawn king and pawn endgame, because their pawn is on the side of the board. So that was my plan. However, it was not realised because he didn't take the pawn. He played rook c6. I retreated. Now king takes f3, and if I take the pawn, there's no stalemate traps. Still hoping against hope that either he would lose on time with a minute or two left on his clock. I didn't have much time either, but still was hoping for the best. And f2 was played. Bishop g3, I was sort of going for some sort of trap. He didn't even make a queen. That's how insulting he was. I thought it would be funnier actually to make a knight, but making the queen is clearly going to win. The only trick left, I was going to do this, and if he played the correct move, I would resign. If he takes with the king, it's a draw by stalemate. But taking with the queen is mate in 2, or mate in 1 rather after this move. Wherever I move the king, the queen will mate me by taking the pawn or playing queen g3 mate. But no, he plays king e2, preventing any chance of stalemates. I take king h3, and then here rook g4 is just mate in 2, but he missed it. He played rook g3. I thought it would be funny to not resign for a move or two. And finally he discovered the correct technique, which is to force my king by a Zugzwang to h2 and then checkmate me on h4 and capture my last piece in the process. So an 80-move game. It was very well played by my opponent. I thought I put up enough resistance to not be horribly embarrassed. And our team ended up losing the match 3-1. We lost on boards 1, 2, and 4, and we managed to win on board 3. However, the team that we were rivals with, who were the only team able to catch us for the championship, ended up drawing their match. So even though there's one more game to go in this league where we will play that team, it won't matter. Even if we lose 4-0, we'll still have won the championship. So it's a bittersweet moment. We've won the championship, but I've suffered my first loss in the chess league. Hope you enjoyed the video, and see you in the next one. Bye.